Welcome to another edition of the Big News Roundup. I'm Bill Thomas, and here's what's happening right now. Ilhan Omar votes against a congressional resolution calling Iran the largest state sponsor of terrorism. Governor Gavin Newsom, under fire for alarming statistics confirming that his leadership is ruining California. A Utah senator pushes a nationwide constitutional carry bill for firearms. And fans are deeply concerned for superstar Leo DiCaprio's well-being after alarming photos surfaced from the set of his new movie. And I think that means right now we are on Leo alert. All this and a bunch more is coming up right now on the Big Roundup. We begin today on Capitol Hill, where Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and her fellow far-left squad members are among dozens of Democrats who've just shown their true colors by voting against a non-binding House resolution, and that one declaring Iran to be the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the entire world. While that might sound like a total no-brainer to folks like you and I, the Somalia-born lawmaker and her radical cronies are apparently singing a different tune altogether. And they're singing that tune, by the way, out of tune. So, the resolution was put forth by a Republican lawmaker from Florida, and it simply states for the record that the Islamic Republic of Iran remains our planet's largest state sponsor of terror, in part by providing substantial military and financial support to violent groups, including Hamas, Hezbollah, and more. Additionally, it goes on to say that Iran continues to pose an ongoing threat to our entire country, that they're already responsible for the deaths of hundreds of American citizens and service members, and that they're still extremely dangerous due to their ambitious nuclear weapons program as well. The measure eventually passed resoundingly by an extremely wide margin. However, more than 50 Democrats actually had the gall to vote the other way, including ringleader Omar, goofy clown Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, of course, and the rest of their far-left lunatic fringe sideshow. They're all a bunch of dingbats, but I'm sure their parents love them. Maybe. One misguided Democrat speaks for the entire cast of characters when she says that even though she supports freedom for Iran's protesters, she voted against the measure simply because it contains inaccuracies and because, in her opinion, it's designed to justify the president's war actions as well. For their part, the vast majority of lawmakers who back the measure are in agreement that the Iranian regime is basically evil and that they rightly believe it's imperative for them to denounce Tehran's appalling treatment of their own citizens, as well as their destabilizing actions throughout the entire world. In the meantime, even the most extreme political pundits seem to be reaching the inevitable conclusion that the ill one, Ilhan Omar, has finally stepped over the line and gone too far.
Why are you the way that you are?
Well, better late than never. They include longtime strategist James Carville, who is now doubling down and reiterating his call for Omar to abandon the Democratic Party altogether. Or maybe the Democratic Party can abandon her. Either way is fine. He now claims that her prior attacks on white males in particular are, in his words, cultural insanity, adding that everyone would be much better off if she jumps ship and joins the Democratic Socialists of America. Not a bad idea. Final thought, and this is the News Roundup Lowdown. Here's the way it all pans out. And these little squad bunnies, AOC, Moneybags Omar, and the other castaways, they are, in fact, legitimately dumber than the movie Dumb and Dumber, starring Jim, Plastic Surgery Carey, and the other guy, Jeff Daniels.
Just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber, you go and do something like this and totally redeem yourself.
What a bunch of blockheads. Anybody with a conscience, a heartbeat, and a pulse, even a faint pulse, would never vote against declaring that Iran is a state sponsor of terror. How many more disgusting, murderous, and despicable terrorist groups does the soon-to-be destroyed Islamic regime have to prop up, fund with a great deal of money, weapons, training, and more, before our precious little squad troop and a number of their Democrat colleagues say enough is enough? Hey, look, the whole world knows, and all too well, that Iran has been desperately trying to become a nuclear power. And if you think they're nuking up for the sole purpose of pumping some juice into the grid to power homes and neighborhood diners, then you most likely voted for Joe Biden in that last election. Oh, yeah, why didn't Biden and friends try to stop Iran? Well, that's because he was busy watching reruns of Matlock. And in his defense, Matlock was a great TV series, so get off his back. And Editor Pranov, a scene from The Great Attorney Please.
You didn't kill Thompson. But you did, Mr. Wells.
Yes! Yes, I killed Ned Thompson! I killed him!
close enough for government work. Actually, we were looking for Matlock, and that's the other great attorney. That was Perry Mason, but it'll do. Thank you, Pranav the Magnificent. Hey, bottom line, Iran wants to nuke up because they want to destroy Israel, threaten other neighbors in their region, and even try to engage in some kind of battle with us right here in the States. It's also widely known that they've murdered, slaughtered their own citizens, and to argue that Iran is anything other than a state sponsor of terror means that our esteemed squad lacks even a drop of common sense and compassion. Also, they've got no soul. In other words, they're dumb, or dumber, or in fact, both. Turning our attention now to another flailing Democrat who's currently being called out by a leading journalist for threatening to do to our entire country what he's been doing for years to his home state of California, which, by the way, is my home state right here, California. In an extremely revealing recent interview, well-known reporter Katie Couric actually challenges presidential hopeful Gavin Newsom's smug arrogance by confronting him with the grim consequences of his harmful policies. During an appearance to promote his new book, the left-leaning journalist catches the Golden State governor completely off guard when she points out just how dreadful his administration's programs have been to the people of California. Absolutely. For starters, she begins by telling him in no uncertain terms that voters all across the country are extremely concerned when it comes to measurable statistics regarding his state's economy and quality of education. She then goes on to spring a total surprise on gruesome Newsom by revealing that right now, California is tied with Louisiana for having the highest poverty rate in the entire country. And think about that. Really let that sink in. She then goes on to blindside him further by letting him know that his state, my state as well, currently has our nation's highest unemployment rate as well. Unfortunately, her indignant tirade doesn't stop there. Working up a full head of steam, she also lets him know that according to the New York Times, even the notoriously inadequate schools in Mississippi are now outperforming his education system, especially when it comes to disadvantaged children. She finishes up by telling him sooner or later, when voters catch wind of all those facts, they're likely to turn their backs on California completely and say no thanks to the governor once and for all.
But you can't do this to me.
You know how much I sacrificed?
Now, for his part, Newsom responds by giving Couric a long-winded, nonsensical, and basically incoherent lecture that apparently has something to do with the poverty rate, housing, supply and demand, and more. Then goes on to have the audacity to actually brag about California's entire education system, claiming that vast improvements are being made daily. No, they're not. And that test scores are currently skyrocketing across the board. That's kind of questionable. In the meantime, lawmakers are adding fuel to the fire and warning that Newsom's so-called green agenda is gumming up the works as well and threatening to wreak further havoc on California's economy by causing their state's already inflated gas prices to eventually soar above, and get this, $8 a gallon. I'm going to have to buy a pogo stick to get around town. This is the News Roundup Lowdown. Check this out. You got to pay close attention to this story because this Gavin Newsom character is every bit as crooked as the maniac from Minnesota, Governor Tim Walz. Crooked, crafty, conniving, and too ambitious for his own good. This gruesome fella is so bent, he'd try to sell a used car to a guy confined to a hospital bed if he thought he could score a quick buck. Now, look, brag all you want about the great success you've had in California, but your state is a mess with a massive homeless population, sanctuary cities, violent crime, and the highest gas prices in the country. And again, we just said it, gas prices could hit $8 a gallon right here. Very soon, gas in California is going to cost more than the car you're trying to fill up. Next item, education. The wannabe emperor brags about offering free school meals and savings accounts for kindergartners. Well, newsflash, it's not the job of the state to feed and pay school children. You're missing the point. Simply focus on the 3 R's, reading, writing, and recess, and do your job, Governor. You know, to be fair, for those who are fond of failure upon failure concerning crime, the unhoused population, unaffordable cost of living, comical fuel prices, and more, then maybe this Governor Newsom fella, Gavin Newsom, is just what we need to keep our country strong, prosperous, and, in fact, the envy of the free world. Got to switch gears entirely now. Shift our focus to an intriguing story dealing with our nation's constitutionally guaranteed right to keep and bear arms. In a move aimed at streamlining gun rights throughout our entire country, a Republican senator from Utah, a guy named Mike Lee, never heard of him, now promoting a new bill on Capitol Hill. A bill on Capitol Hill, which would allow American citizens, just like you and I, to carry firearms in public whenever we go out without getting prior approval from the authorities. As an old saying, an armed society is a polite society. According to lawmakers, his measure, the National Constitutional Carry Act, would totally eliminate the need for people to obtain official concealed carry permits in order to bring their weapons with them when they leave their homes. It would also abolish all charges, fees, and penalties associated with those documents as well. Furthermore, the legislation also prohibits local governments from requiring additional licenses or fees for carrying a firearm in the future, while also permanently barring them from criminalizing that right in any way. As Lee correctly points out, many states in our great union already protect the right to carry firearms without a permit, and in his opinion, it's time to reaffirm that guarantee for all law-abiding Americans without forcing them to get down on their knees and beg for permission from hostile local officials. Right now, there are 29 states that allow some form of constitutional carry regarding firearms, and as we've noted, this new bill would universalize those rights and expand them from coast to coast. However, it is worth noting that this measure would also protect certain private property rights concerning firearms, including by maintaining a ban on weapons in a number of highly secure areas, for example, government buildings. Common sense stuff. Final thought, and this is the News Roundup Lowdown. You know, it's just amazing, and I learn something new on this program every day. I always thought the right to keep and bear arms meant that I keep my left and my right arm, my arms, and show them off whenever I wanted. I honestly had no idea it had anything to do with guns. It's just amazing. In any event, this fine Republican from the Beehive State, good old Utah, says rules, fees, penalties, permits, and all the rest just nonsense. And he thinks everyone should simply be able to gun up with a Glock 9, a .357, a .44 Magnum, which I think was the one that Clint Eastwood used to carry around in his movies, or a trusty .22. Pick a gun, any gun. Kind of sounds like the old West, walk around town with a gun belt and a six-shooter, just like Marshall Dillon, the lawman from that Gunsmoke TV series. You know, I think I'm on the fence for this one. Here in Southern California, shootings, relatively common experience, and there are far too many people who have guns who shouldn't have guns. Many of those folks are irresponsible, they got short fuses, and they lack the proper training necessary to use guns for purposes of self-defense only. You know, on the other hand, it might be the case that mass shootings at schools, churches, public settings, and more theoretically could be thwarted if enough people with appropriate education were in possession of a firearm or two. Now, what are your thoughts? Guns for everyone, no questions asked, or keep things just the way they are, like a Billy Joel record? Leave us a comment, tell us what you're thinking, and while you're leaving that comment, golly, help us out just a little bit. Don't forget to hit that little subscribe button right over yonder. All right, change directions now and take a look at a disturbing new report from a religious freedom watchdog group which paints an extremely foul picture of the tyranny of the Chinese communist regime. According to an agency called the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, the Chinese Communist Party currently ramping up their crackdown on any and all religious activities that dare to operate outside of their rigid control. They say that right now, any religious leader or follower who refuses to submit to the CCP's brutal restrictions is immediately subjected to ruthless torture, grueling forced labor, also lengthy imprisonment, and more. Additionally, the report warns that the situation in China is becoming more unpleasant every day because they're persecuting virtually every single faith they can get their hands on, including Catholics, Muslims, Falun Gong, and others. And furthermore, that they're engaging in transnational repression outside of their own borders as well. All right, moving along, a couple of additional headlines that we're also keeping a very close watch on here in the News Roundup newsroom. And first up, breaking developments concerning that war in Iran. And this is on everybody's mind right now. President Trump now says he won't be making any kind of deal with the Islamic Republic until they surrender unconditionally. In the meantime, the war is escalating dramatically with Iran ramping up their attacks throughout the Gulf region. Russia now reportedly providing intel to Tehran, and both the U.S. and Israel vowing to unleash far greater firepower until they get that job done. Moving along, the Trump administration now reporting that shortly after the removal of former dictator Nicolas Maduro, our nation has finally agreed to reestablish former diplomatic relations with Venezuela. And meanwhile, officials say that the communist regime in Cuba could be the next domino to fall, adding that our current pressure campaign against the island nation is now pushing that country to its breaking point. And now closer to home, the Postmaster General warning the long-troubled U.S. Postal Service is going to completely run out of cash in less than a year. How is that possible with the price for stamps? It's all going to happen unless Congress changes their tune and allows the agency to borrow more money so they can stay afloat and keep on delivering the mail. Delivering it late, but delivering the mail. Look, I say shut them down or sell the outfit to Amazon. And now, before we wrap it all up, a little bit of showbiz news, and we kick things off today with growing concerns for the health of a nearly unrecognizable Hollywood superstar. According to reports, movie fans worldwide are working themselves into a lather after Oscar winner Leonardo DiCaprio was recently seen sporting a thick walrus mustache, an enormous Buddha belly, and a pronounced double chin as well. However, everybody can now relax as it appears that Leo's shocking physical transformation, nothing more than makeup for his new role in director Martin Scorsese's upcoming picture, What Happens at Night. I got to tell you, there are tons of things in life that I really enjoy doing. Sometimes on the weekend, I fly out to Mar-a-Lago, do a little golfing with 47. Every now and again, I go boating with Jeff Bezos on the Amazon yacht. And a couple of times a month, just for fun, I grab my accordion, go into the studio with Mick and the boys, the Rolling Stones. We all jam together. It's fun. The one thing I never do on this program is lie. And honestly, that is not DiCaprio. And clearly, I think it's the Michelin Man. The belly is the clear giveaway. Just look at the center there. It's either that or the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. In any event, there's no way that's Leonardo DiCaprio. And what do you say? Also, speaking of the Oscars, we have some marvelous breaking news concerning this year's highly anticipated Academy Awards ceremony, which is just around the corner, about a week or so away. According to reports, both the original Iron Man himself, Robert Downey Jr., and his sidekick, gorgeous Gwyneth Paltrow, are now set to hand out a bunch of little gold statues during the big celebration. On the other hand, former child star Corey Feldman reportedly throwing yet another one of his patented foot-stomping temper tantrums after being left out of the show's Rob Reiner tribute entirely. Poor kid. It might be kind of fun to see Gwyneth Paltrow, Gwen Pal, and her pal, Robert Downey Jr., handing out a trophy or two during the big awards program next week. Also, it's kind of a crime that the Rob Reiner segment, during that segment, a bunch of the stars from his Stand By Me movie, they're going to pay tribute to the great director, but they left out my guy, Corey Feldman. It's like having a Beatles reunion and leaving out Pete Best. It's a kick in the head. Corey Feldman is the new Pete Best. And with that, time to call it a wrap on the big news roundups. Have an awesome day today. Enjoy the weekend. Stay safe. If you haven't done so already, I'd like to remind you every now and again, hit that subscribe button right there. By the way, for most of our country, I almost forgot about this. Daylight savings times begins this weekend, so don't forget to set your clocks 1 hour ahead at 2 a.m. on Sunday. With that, gonna dim lights, fade to black, and we'll see you right back here next time for another episode of the Big News Roundup.